Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of VMblog's 2021 Mega Series. And today we're talking about end-user computing and the ability to work from anywhere. In the hot seat today, we're joined by Don Clemmer, Enterprise Sales Engineer at Parallels. Don, welcome to the discussion.
Thanks, guys. How's it going?
Good.
Good. Before we dive in, maybe you could give our listeners kind of a background of Parallels and what you guys do.
Yeah, sure. We were formed at Parallels was founded in 1999, and then in 2018, it was acquired by Corel Corporation, which is actually a software company that was founded in the mid-1980s. We're used to Corel Draw, I guess, is from where that's from. Although they now hold quite a few number of software organizations under that umbrella. We're best known for Parallels Desktop for Mac, but in general, we create virtualization solutions for businesses that enable their IT teams to manage their infrastructure more efficiently and help end users be more productive.
And Don, as we're here talking about end user computing, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you see the EUC evolving in a post-pandemic world.
Yeah, sure. I think we're going to continue to see a high level of remote work across all businesses, and that's going to require investments in EUC technology and solutions. A lot of companies kind of put something in just as a stopgap, but now they've got a chance to kind of take a look and figure out what perhaps is a better way to approach it. And I also see an opportunity for smaller companies to take on a larger chunk of the market share by seizing this demand, and then developing solutions a little bit more flexible and affordable and simpler to deploy and manage. Parallels Remote Application Server, or RAS, using the acronym, is one example, right? We enable companies to create fully remote workspaces for any number of users. We can scale down very, very small to about 15 users up to several thousand. And we do this without adding in the complexity that other VDI or remote app solutions often come with. And so many organizations, that believe that implementing this type of solution or even maintaining it for the long term is kind of beyond their budget or their IT capabilities, I think they'll find that Parallels RAS will be a pleasant surprise. And I also see a lot of smaller companies kind of getting into the cloud game a little bit, trying to compete with the big guys like AWS and Azure. You should continue to see more of this going forward.
So how does Parallels RAS help companies secure, remote work environments?
Yeah, I mean, first off, obviously, when you do this type of technology, you're keeping the data off the end user devices. So as you have devices out there in the world, the real world or the wild, when you don't have data on that device, you don't have to worry about if it's lost or stolen. There's no sensitive data on the device to worry about. If you steal my laptop or my iPad, congratulations, you got an iPad, but you don't have your data. But beyond that, Parallels RAS offers a variety of features to provide enhanced security. We've got advanced remote access control to enforce end user policies by user location. You can integrate with SAML SSO, multi-factor authentication. We've got some robust monitoring and reporting services. And then, of course, the network traffic is encrypted end to end. So you can pretty much rest assured that your data is protected no matter where your users are, what they're connecting over, or what they're connecting from.
And you sort of touched on this a little bit earlier, but what makes Parallels RAS unique compared to other VDI or desktop virtualization solutions that's currently on the market?
Yeah, I'd say definitely that the fact that it's simpler to deploy and manage and use, and that, of course, allows it to be much more affordable than other similar remote app and virtual desktop solutions. It's also an all-inclusive solution. There's no additional cost. I always laugh that there's no Advanced Enterprise Platinum Plus Data Center Edition, right? You buy one version and you kind of get everything you want. And that also includes support and upgrades. And a lot of our customers are enjoying that kind of licensing model, and then the simplicity allows them to be up and running very, very quickly, often just hours, as opposed to days or even weeks. And it's a solution that's not only easy for end users to get used to, but also for IT teams to manage. And because it can be scaled up and down based on business needs, that's very flexible. And then it provides a lot of high-end bells and whistles that are usually available only in more complex solutions, but it also comes at a much lower price point. And then the manageability makes it a bit easier to keep that TCO down as well.
Now, talking about this work from anywhere, how has the shift to remote work affected the people, connectivity, infrastructure, security, et cetera, all that stuff?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because the shift to large-scale remote work happened during a global pandemic, right? There was this huge amount of fear, anxiety, uncertainty swirling around. I think that many people feel a big physical disconnect from friends, family, and coworkers over a year being isolated, mostly at home. But it also happened kind of in I guess, a good time. Even a few years ago, it would have been a bigger challenge. But we've pretty well been connected online now, and people are kind of getting used to that with all the social media. And that's accelerated even recently, of course, because just think about every new person who suddenly knows how to operate Zoom. That's one of the major words now that everybody knows what Zoom is. Before this, I'm not sure if they would per se, just in the past 12 months. And now we're even seeing like weddings being streamed to relatives or grandma in another state or even another country. And we've also seen business travel perhaps change, right? All these in-person, essential in-person meetings, were they really that essential to be in person? We've been able to do all that online now. Human beings are very adaptable, and we figured out a way to stay connected even when we physically can't be together. And then on the other side, when it comes to the infrastructure and security on the back end, well, a lot of that technology has been there for quite some time, but a lot of organizations weren't necessarily using it because they didn't have to. And then when the pandemic hits, the adoption of cloud computing accelerated on the back end to host that infrastructure because many companies just didn't have the on-premises infrastructure capacity to handle the sudden shift to almost 100% work from home. And then technologies such as VDI and remote application delivery, they demonstrated their value to organizations that weren't using before, never considered them before. And now that companies have seen that it's possible to work remotely and it's possible to work effectively like that, and that remote work offers a host of other benefits to both businesses and its employees, there's really no putting the genie completely back in the bottle at this point.
And as part of the whole work from anywhere thing, explain, if you could, maybe talk about how your solutions enable that shift to the remote work, and maybe talk about where your solutions fit within the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a very cost-effective way to provide employees with secure access to a full desktop experience or just selected applications, right? Or both, given our licensing model. And you can do that from pretty much any device, including smartphones and tablets. We'll probably do a little demo later, and I'll kind of show you what that looks off of the tablet. It's one thing to kind of check your email off a phone or a tablet. It's another to actually be able to do productive work. And then since the solution is so easy to set up, deploy, and manage, employees can be up and running very quickly in just hours. We've seen that over and over again during the pandemic. People came to us in a panic, and then they're up and running pretty quickly because they had to do something also immediately. And we always say that, anyone with pretty decent Windows administration skills can become very quickly an expert on Parallels RAS. And again, because the solution's all inclusive, you're not having to say, well, everybody's got to be VDI or everybody's got to just be remote app based on a remote desktop server or something like that. You can provide these different services to different workers without having to worry about the licensing costs, right? Maybe your power users get the full VDI desktop. Other people perhaps just get a shared desktop right off a remote desktop server, and then other folks get, you just need a few applications to kind of do your work. And it allows you to mix and match these approaches without having to adjust your licensing or management infrastructure. I think that's pretty unique to that. And that couples with some of our other solutions, such as, I mentioned Parallels Desktop for Mac, run Windows on the Mac, Parallels Desktop for Chrome OS. Both of those allow you to kind of choose the platform that you want your end users to work on, even though you're dealing with maybe just that one or two Windows app that you just can't get away from, right?
And so this work from anywhere has kind of given a big boost to the EUC market. And, me and David are always saying, is this the year of VDI? Have we reached that point? But, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is the year of VDI, or do you think it's in a decline or a accelerated environment now that, a lot of people are depending on work from home?
Yeah, that's interesting. VDI is definitely not dead. And I always kind of chuckle when I hear the phrase that this is the year of VDI. I actually was involved in it very early on. We were kind of working for a large hardware vendor. We were looking at ways to sell more servers and kind of try to reach more users in this. It wasn't even a connection broker in those days, until some larger companies adopted it. But the whole idea was that using the traditional remote application type computers or remote desktop servers or terminal servers, I guess is what we called it back in the day, it was never, it could never reach all your users. It would always reach kind of a limit. And VDI was never meant to replace that. It was meant to be an additional offering, right? Let's use VDI, and now we can reach more users than we could reach just with that. So that was kind of the idea. So my opinion is, VDI should definitely be in most companies' IT toolbox. But even today, delivering remote applications and desktop solutions that are built on top of just remote desktop services is often the most efficient way to do that for most users. So use VDI where you need it, but kind of not for everybody. That's why I always laugh, is this the year? Now, is it dying? Well, cloud-based computing is superseding both those technologies, both VDI and RDS-based technologies. But it's going to be a long time before all the existing mission-critical apps, including many ERP and EMR type apps, transition to a fully SaaS model. That's actually one of the biggest growing segments in our business. Is we've got ISVs, they're producing these large, complex ERP type applications, but the cost, the time, and quite frankly, the risk of rewriting what's large and relatively stable code is just prohibitive for them to do that. And so they're using a solution like Parallels RAS that's got its own built-in web front end to deliver their application. And it's a quick way for them to kind of be able to cloud enable these apps and then also transform their business from being just sellers of software to also becoming SaaS providers themselves. So in the long run, yeah, I guess it could go away, but there's a lot of life back still left in traditional solutions like VDI.
Yeah, Brian and I have been at this like you for what seems like our entire lives. But thinking of desktop virtualization and just end user computing as a whole, traditionally it's been dominated by on-premises solutions. Here we are in 2021. How has cloud, sort of reshaped end user computing?
Yeah, we are seeing a lot more of our customers move that into the cloud. Obviously, people are using the cloud for everything. There's a lot of the cloud-based computing apps, Salesforce.com, cloud-based storage. Those are ubiquitous and been leveraged by IT for a long time. But interesting, even more traditional end-user computing environments like remote application and VDI are moving to the cloud now. And one of the main drivers was, during the global pandemic, companies were forced to adapt to almost 100% work environment pretty much overnight. And many just didn't have the on-premises infrastructure capacity to do so. The only way they could meet that demand rapidly was to, utilize the cloud. And now that they've gotten their feet wet, so to speak, we've seen kind of two things. You've got a lot of people that were kind of slower adopters to the cloud. Well, they've gotten their feet wet in that, and now they've seems a little less scary. And then others that were skeptical about being able to run that type of workload in the cloud have now seen that it's possible. Going forward, I still think that organizations with fairly stable workloads and existing data centers will usually find that the long-term cost of the cloud is going to be more expensive than just maintaining what they have or incrementally expanding their on-premises infrastructure. However, they've seen the value of that, and so cloud computing is going to remain a part of their EUC strategy for no other reason than to be able to handle unforeseen events and disruptions. But we've also seen a lot of our hosting provider partners adopt a 100% cloud model, right? Because the recurring cost of the cloud fits into their monthly billing cycles much easier than acquiring and then gradually paying off an on-premises data center, right? Kind of the CapEx versus OpEx argument. And we've seen some very, very tiny organizations using Parallels. Often they don't have dedicated IT teams, and they're finding that the low acquisition cost of moving to the cloud now puts more solutions within their grasp. They're still going to need some consulting help to kind of get this going, but it's a lot easier just to kind of run a couple of things up in the cloud than trying to host a little mini server or something in the closet all by yourself.
I think you've kind of already maybe covered this. What does the future of end user computing look like? I know you've talked about some examples of where it's headed, but do you have any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, definitely we're going to see this high level of remote work across all businesses. That's going to continue. That's going to require investments in UC technology and solution. I do think now that the panic's kind of over with, right? Everybody that has to adopt something adopted something, but it does give you a chance to kind of sit back and think, maybe what we put in a hurry isn't the best thing that was for us and the size of our organization. And I see an opportunity there for maybe companies that people don't think of, whether they're just kind of running their own little cloud hosting services or providing remote application type solutions. There's an opportunity there for them to kind of grow and seize on this demand. Yeah.
And so this has all been great information, but I think you mentioned it at the very beginning earlier on, but it'd be great if we can get just a quick demo of the product so that we can learn more about, Parallels and see something, in action.
Absolutely. So this is the web front end for Parallels Remote Applications Server, and we're always happy when people are advertising our products in Parallels, but you can change the colors and the logos to kind of match your own organization, right? Your own look and feel for this. This can work. So this is the end user experience, and you can see obviously I'm running on a Mac, but I'm delivering some just basic Windows applications. This web interface can work in two functions. One is completely clientless. So I can come in here and launch an application like, here's PowerPoint. There it is. And it looks like you can see I also had Word open earlier from a previous session. And so I can kind of multitask, go back and forth, work between these different applications in here. But I haven't had to install anything on my end user device, and I get a fully function system. I can even do a few things like printing locally if I wanted. So if I go to File and Print here, you'll see this 2x universal printer pops up. That will print automatically to whatever the default printer is on my workstation. And this works right on the box without you having to do anything from an administrator standpoint. We have a universal printing solution built into the product, so you don't have to install universal drivers or anything like that on the server. It should just kind of work right out of the box. So highly, highly convenient, but of course there's some trade-offs in that it doesn't have all the bells and whistles if we were able to put a little bit of code on your solution. So the other way is if I install a piece of software called the Parallels client, and it's just the client front end, and it's going to feel like a browser plugin to the end users, but it's not. They just download it, next, and close it. And then once that's detected on the system, as I switch modes here, what if I launch an application then, like Excel? Here we go. You can see that Excel pops up, that I'll minimize this behind me. I now have kind of a more seamless Windows experience. And you can see that this is in fact the Windows application of Excel, not the one on Mac. But now I can do things like multi-monitor. I have much stronger integration with my local hard disks or local files. If I want, as an administrator, I can of course turn that access off so that nothing can be transferred off the server. And then if I do things like go into File and Print, I don't just get my default printer, I get all my printers. So I've got an Epson printer over here, and then I've got Xerox printers. So it redirects all of them and gives you a little bit more bells and whistles by doing that. So you can make a choice between whether you want to go with that highly convenient clientless method, or perhaps put a little bit of software on your workstation, and then now you get suddenly more bells and whistles with that. And this is on a Mac, but it works across pretty much any end user device. One other thing I wanted to show you too is I can launch a VDI window from here. So let me get back to my clientless solution here, and I can do remote applications, or I can just do a VDI window. Of course, I can pick and choose which users can do one or the other or both. But if I launch this, it also works in clientless mode. You can see I had my desktop open in the tab. And so I've got a full Windows desktop, and you can see I'm running just in the tab of the web browser. Now, that's not the greatest way to do that, of course, but if you look at this little toolbar over here on the right that I'm moving up and down, I can switch to full screen mode and then just change that. And now I have once my resolution catches up, there we go. Now I've got a full screen desktop, but I am still just running in a tab on the browser. If I was using the client with this, the non-clientless method, then I actually would have multiple discrete screens on each display. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to show you was the kind of the experience on a tablet. So let me switch over to my iPad. This works very similarly if I was doing this off an Android device as well. But I can come in here and just go in here and launch the Parallels client. And then now I'm in Word. And I also have this little toolbar over here, which allows me to multitask. So I can switch different applications. I can launch more applications. I can switch back and forth between documents. And then, as I mentioned earlier, the key, of course, is being able to actually productively work off this. So I'm actually using my finger. I'm not cheating, but we built in a very way to do touch screens. So if I just press and hold my finger, you can see I've got this magnifying glass that now I can get to. And now I can move up here and get right into the corners and make very, very precise mouse clicks. and resize objects and do things of that nature. And then again, looking over here at these settings, you can change the mouse mode too if you'd like. So I could click on this. Oops, that was my virtual keyboard popping up. Let me close that. But I also have the, there we go, the gear over there, and then I can switch the mouse. And this looks very exciting in a demo because it is just using, essentially, I'm just, the mouse, as you can see, I'm moving around the screen. I'm just using my finger. I promise I'm not using a mouse. But now I can get up into the corners up here, and you can see this little toolbar that popped in the top. I can actually make left and right mouse clicks. So if I want to resize or do that. Down at these, oops, let me get my finger position right. Down at, and I can resize stuff. These little keys down at the very bottom, I guess I can't drag cursor down there. Those are function keys. I can define those too, so that I can actually have specific shortcut keys. So I don't need to make like awkward 3-finger clicks on this. I can just simply define a button. So I could do a simple one like undo. I could present undo at the bottom. And then instead of having to do Control and Z off a virtual keyboard, I could just hit the undo button. And then of course, I can print from here as well. So if I was using Apple AirPrint, I could go File Print and print to that default printer as well. So that was kind of a quick touch over the end user device. Like I said, I've shown you kind of Macs and iPads, but it works off Android tablets, Google Chromebooks, Linux, thin clients, you name it. We pretty much have a client that works on your device.
Well, thanks for that great demo. Where can people go if they want to find out more information about Parallels, Parallels RAS, and some of the other things you've talked about today?
Yeah, if you just go to our website, parallels.com, you can find a wealth of information there about that. And we also offer free trials. So if you'd like to download and try Parallels RAS on your own, like I said, it can scale down to a single server. So it just takes you a few minutes to set that up. And then you get a full 30 days, completely full featured to try it out. But yeah, our website has all sorts of information like that.
Great. Well, thanks for joining us on this mega series. And we look forward to seeing you maybe in the future in person at one of these shows if they ever come back, right?
Oh, that would be great. Yeah, hopefully. It was great talking to you guys. Thank you all.
All right. You too, Don. Thanks.
I hope you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more from our cloud technology partners, please hit the like button and subscribe. And if you want to get notified next time we post a video, please hit the subscribe and the bell notification. Very important.